the Emperor. To the Adeptus Astartes, the great primogenitor and mightiest leader mankind would ever know. To the Carcharadron Astra, he was Rangu, the Void Father, sire of the Forgotten One. Like the Carcharadrons, his vigilance was eternal, a beacon in the night, the bane of the encroaching darkness. Shah's chapter had left humanity for the emptiness of the Outer Dark when he had still walked among mortals, and they would not return until he did so once again. Only with the coming of the Forgotten One could the edicts of exile be overturned, and the chapter's eternal crusade in the darkness be brought to an end.
Today we're going to take a look at the greatest silent killers within Warhammer 40k. The Carcharadrons have a brutal reputation. Their chapter master, Tyberos the Red Wake, is perhaps one of the most feared characters in the setting because he is a gigantic space marine who fights in complete silence. But what we found out in the most recent Carcharadrons book called Void Exile is that there's actually a type of space marine that is too extreme even for the Carcharadrons. So we're going to go through their lore today. The Carcharadron Astra are a brotherhood steeped in mystery, self-imposed banishment, and almost primal savagery. Their origins likely trace back to the Horus Heresy itself, where they were dispatched into the outer darkness upon the first day of exile. The exact nature of their banishment is unknown, but they were given an extreme mandate, a remit unbound to set about the traitor, the alien, and the renegade without mercy, and to harrow them in their places of strength. This would continue until their final atonement. The eternal crusade in the darkness cannot end until the coming of the Forgotten One. The Carcharadrons operate as a nomad predation fleet, perpetually isolated from the wider Imperium, having been roaming for 10 millennia. This isolation has led to a cult of silence. They are unsettlingly quiet. They boast in silence and prepare for war in silence. This practice stems from the belief that the solace of silence is a blessing, and that it spoke of the chapter's long exile. They embrace lethal anonymity, stripping away individuality and ego, replacing names with coded number designates until a warrior proves his worth and earns a name. Beneath their simple grey battleplate is a horrific visage, death-pale skin, inky black eyes, and teeth filed to wicked sharpened points. And they don't just look like monsters. They eschew the imperial standard of glory and honour. They believe honour is a dead thing, merely a lie invented by arrogant men to excuse their own foolhardiness. For the Carcharadrons, the galaxy demands pragmatism and survival. A true predator has no ideals. To survive and replenish their numbers in the Outer Dark, they rely on two specific practices: the Red Tithes, expeditions authorized by the Edicts of Exile, to descend on a world and harvest the population for recruits and serfs. This is a brutal necessity, and the attrition rate is considerably higher than that of other Space Marine chapters. In the Red Tithe novel, it's said, "From the Outer Dark we come, and when the Red Tithe is over, we will leave behind only darkness, nothing more." In addition to this, the Grey Tithes are their expeditions focused on acquiring material and equipment. Interestingly, the newer novels have clarified the Primaris Marines have reinforced the Carcharadrons chapter. So far, the writers are yet to properly explore whether there were any frictions, but we do know many still favour the old armour marks, and their Mark X plate is often interlaced with older, more preferred armours. The Carcharadrons are masters of slaughter. Their violence is often compared to the most notoriously bloody chapters, yet with unnerving differences. Their aggression is constant and unrelenting, reflecting their self-identity as powerful oceanic predators. One of the most famous examples is, of course, the Badab War, a war which they entered unexpectedly and then aligned themselves with the Loyalist forces. Their brutal reputation was made manifest, as they enacted a scorched earth campaign across the Endymion cluster to draw out and then crush the Mantis Warriors chapter. Even for a chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, the lore makes it very clear they had no regard for civilian casualties. Commander Carib Khan would task them with crippling the infrastructure of Badab Primaris, which the Carcharadrons achieved by sabotaging reactor cores, causing catastrophic tectonic upheaval. This devastating, if effective, solution broke the secessionist forces, but also killed countless loyalists, reportedly earning the lasting ire of the Star Phantoms chapter. Even the heretic Astartes seem to understand the Carcharadrons are not to be messed with. A Night Lord called Karl in the first Carcharadrons novel noted that this chapter matched the bloodthirsty violence of the Blood Angels and even the Space Wolves, and even then he found these grey-clad loyalists unsettling. Crucially, and perhaps most unnerving, unlike the Night Lords, the Carcharadrons are utterly silent in combat. This means that even as their bloodlust is unrestrained, they maintain complete tactical awareness, even amidst the slaughter. A consistent theme within their lore is their conflict with the Inquisition. Naturally, the Red Tithe is the greatest example of their brutality, and inquisitorial agents have noted that there are few places the Carcharadrons have visited and left many alive to tell the tale. Furthermore, the isolation of the chapter often forces them into necessary but scandalous compromises, such as maintaining a pact with the renegade Ashen Claws to exchange gene seed and material for raw human flesh to replenish their ranks. The gene seed of the Carcharadrons is officially of unknown origin, however the lore does heavily imply that their gene father was actually Corvus Corax, the Primarch of the Raven Guard. The Carcharadrons do have pale skin, a dowly demeanour, and they make use of Raven Guard titles. Nevertheless, there are some differences that seem to suggest the Carcharadrons have a more complex genetic heritage. The Ashen Claws believe that the Carcharadrons are of a malformed genetic heritage. Both the Night Lords and the World Eaters have been called brothers to the chapter. It has even been suggested that by the 41st millennium they have a chimeric heritage, resulting from them scavenging gene seed from other space marines. Whatever the reason, they do face numerous challenges. The Carcharadron chapter constantly struggles to maintain its numbers due to inherent genetic issues, as their gene seed is degrading and genetic difficulties have rendered sustained combat operations unsustainable. These afflictions manifest physically in older members as denticle scabbing, a degenerative genetic anomaly that causes patches of skin, particularly around the eyes, jaw and neck, to become scabbed a rough dark grey by denticles, resulting in a scaly texture. However, the most profound affliction stemming from their malformed genetic heritage is the blindness. This is not a literal lack of sight, but a deep psychological curse manifesting either as silent suicidal ennui and cold nihilism, including a disregard for self-preservation, or explosive bouts of chilling despair that give way to mindless fury and what the book Void Exile calls hyper-violence. Baal Shah, even as Reaper Prime, master of the Third Company, struggled deeply with this affliction, noting that the blindness had broken him and remade him into what he had always dreaded he would one day become. After the Reaper Prime noticed that the chapter's genetic curse was greatly affecting him, and after his command's failure on the agri-platforms above Temperance, Baal Shah demanded to be cast out. This meant he became one of the Void Exiles. Sometimes he wondered what they had discerned of him over the years. He had no doubt they had all noted, on the rare occasions when his helmet was removed, that he bore the shark and scythe tattoo on his left temple. It marked him out as Reaper Prime, an honorific traditionally belonging to the Master of the Third Company. For a Master to suffer banishment was almost unheard of. The shame of that reality was now little more than a background ache. Such emotions were nothing, just as honour and pride were nothing. Distractions detracting from the clarity of duty. From the requirements of the Edicts of Exile, the chapter taught that such things were meaningless. Shah had always found that to be true, until the blindness had taken him. It was the blindness and its mindless rage that had brought him here. It was one of the chapter's curses, born out of its malformed genetic heritage. It had broken him and remade him into what he had always dreaded he would one day become. That was why they addressed him as the Blind One. The blindness was all he had left, the only emotions that had survived the outer dark and still held any meaning for him. None of the other exiles had asked him what blasphemies he had committed, what depravities he had condoned to earn a place among their lot, and nor had he ever sought the details of their crimes. Such a thing would be anathema. What mattered was that each now trod his own road to damnation, and there could be no reprieve except in slaughter. If the Carcharadrons are already considered monsters by the Imperium, the Void Exiles are the disgraced monsters, space marines who stand outside the already strict confines of their nomadic chapter. The Exiles are former brothers, stripped of their names and, in some cases, the arms and armor they had wielded for decades. They had committed acts so unforgivable that they result in absolute banishment from the battle companies, or shivers, as they refer to them. They are set adrift to kill and die on the edges of the outer dark, their existence marked by shame and banishment. They are wretched beings, their mere presence evoking the dread associated with the idea of failing the chapter in some way. Baelshar is forced to work alongside other exiles of the chapter. They are together but bitterly alone. They are deliberately locked out of the usual chain of command, forbidden from even communicating with the battle company shivers. They receive orders primarily through direct communication and instruction from high-ranking chapter figures, particularly members of the Librarius, or, in the absence of higher command, through mutual agreement based on prevailing circumstances. Their purpose is simple: to endure. No death is pointless if it is given in the services of the Voidfather and the chapter, but they are expressly not permitted to cast away their lives unless necessary. In the story, Void Exiles, Baelshar and the other outcasts are drawn into conflict against the forces of chaos, and in particular, those who serve Vashdor the Archiphane, a demon who seeks to become the fifth god of chaos. Upon crash landing on the world of Diamantis, they discover the fallen bodies of Carcharadrons of the Third Company, the company to which Shah himself had previously led. Nevertheless, Shah denied all connection, saying he has no company, he is of no shiver, though he felt compelled to retrieve their gene seed. Not long after, Shah and the remaining exiles are intercepted by Chief Librarian Te Kahurangi, the Pale Nomad. During this confrontation, the Librarian revealed the true reason Baelshar is no longer Reaper Prime.
You yearned for it, did you not? You yearned to be banished, so that you would not have to face the failure of your defeat on the agri-platforms above Temperance. Kino would not have exiled you, but you demanded it, almost begged for it. You left him with no choice other than to send you away and assume command. That is the reality of how we all came to be here. That was your true failure. The blindness is gone, if it gripped at all. You are cowering behind the notion of it. I have grown tired of indulging you. Face your past, overcome it, and remember your duty is to Rangu, the Forgotten One, and the Chapter. Concepts of shame and dishonor are luxuries we cannot afford if we are to survive, even more so in times such as these. Lead. Matters here are desperate. Diamantis has fallen. The Third Company faces annihilation. That is a loss the chapter cannot afford. So forget your pride and honor. Those are dead things. And lead where Koro and I point. Make good your void vows and renew your loyalty to the chapter. You have allowed yourself to be defined by your failure, to be motivated by that alone. Instead, you must be motivated by your duty to the chapter, to the Carcharadron Astra, and to the Third Company, your company. You will lead them again, Baelshar, whether you will it or not.
After being reunited with his company, Shah admitted to his failure that he demanded to be cast out and used the standards of his chapter to escape his own failure. The new Reaper Prime, Kino, and former strike leader of the Red Brethren, the first company veterans of the chapter, inherently carried the weight of Chapter Master Tyberos's authority. The Red Brethren speak with the authority of the Red Wake himself, which means he had the authority to pardon an exile. After the Carcharadrons and the Void Exile succeeded in the Purge of Diamantis, defeating the forces of Vashtor the Archaphane, Chief Librarian Ter Kaharangi orchestrated a confrontation between the former Reaper Prime and his replacement, arguing that Kino's command had been detrimental to the chapter, and that his leadership should not receive ratification. The Librarian pressured Kino to relinquish the title of Reaper Prime, thereby returning to his status as a brother of the First Company, and in doing so, he was able to use his authority as Tyberos's voice to end Shah's banishment, restoring him to his name and Shiva, and returning Shah to the rank of Company Master, and by extension, Reaper Prime. Having saved Diamantis, Shah cited that most ancient of his authorities. He, of course, took the supplies necessary, including human fodder, from the world he had defended. For the red tithe must be collected. There we go. A nice introduction to kind of a reset for the Carcharadrons in Warhammer 40k. I was a bit sad that we didn't see more lore on how the Carcharadrons view the Primaris Marines, how they view Guilliman, and in addition to that, just the Primarchs coming back generally, which means that their Forgotten One will be returning at some point in the future. If you like the Carcharadrons lore, if you like this video, stream even, please do like and subscribe and let me know what you want to cover. There's one of the big Carcharadrons modern plotline I would like to talk about, which I will do in the near future, so stay tuned for that. But I do think I will do a big video on the Carcharadrons because I know they're so popular and I see why. I do think Robbie McNiven does a really good job at fleshing out Space Marine chapters. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the channel. Please like and subscribe and support the channel if you'd like to get more content, and I'll see you next time.